Hey everybody, this is Eric Rousseau with the Comedy Film Festival. I'm joined today by a group of awesome filmmakers from the Comedy Film Festival 2026 honorable mentions. We're so thrilled to have them here today. Something that we're really happy and proud to be able to do is, we've got the in-person fest that happens in Austin every spring. We wish that we could show so many more. We love so many of these projects. Ultimately, though, budget is budget, as a wise man once said, and we can only afford so many screens in a short amount of time. These are projects that we want to have special shout outs to, and we want you to check out. So we are talking to the filmmakers so you get a little bit more insight into these awesome projects. Let's start with Bob. Bob, tell us a little bit about yourself and your project.
Thanks for having me. My name is Bob Lindemeyer. I'm a first-time director. This is kind of my, at least my first midlife crisis project that I'll disclose publicly, at least. My film is called Making Megaforce, and it's about a film from 1982 that I saw when I was 10 years old and fell in love with, and surprisingly, nobody else in the world did. Through this process of trying to bring the gospel of Megaforce to the masses, because I loved it so much, I become best friends with the original movie star, Barry Bostwick, who's from, he's Brad Majors in Rocky Horror Picture Show. He's the mayor in Spin City. He was in the Hannah Montana movie. He's been in about a million things. And so the original conceit was just, kind of doing a straight up, this is why you should appreciate Megaforce. I interviewed cast and crew of the original as a thesis to prove how awesome it was. And through my adventures with Barry Bostwick and my desperate need for a contemporary male role model, I kind of start following him around like a puppy dog. And I end up convincing him to go back to the desert and recreate some scenes from the original Megaforce with the original screen use vehicles I've collected and restored over the years. So it's kind of a docu-adventure drama biopic. It has a lot to do with me and kind of finding closure around, when my folks got divorced and I kind of lost my father figure in my family. So it turns out to be kind of sweet, charming analysis on male role models. And I bring my kids along for the adventure. It's amazing to be recognized by you guys for a comedy, because that was definitely really my intention. The Bob and Barry show, as it were, I'm the straight guy and he's my foil. And every time he's on screen picking on me, it's just a joy to watch, even for me. And I've been doing the film festival thing for about a year. And that's been going really well. Got a lot of appreciation, including you can't believe how excited I was. Like, oh my God, I called Barry. I was like, we got recognized in a comedy festival. How amazing is that? So I'm just really appreciative to be here with something so strange. It's not kind of a straight up comedy, I guess, as it were.
Real quick, what do you got behind you there?
Oh, this is Barry Bostwick's original Delta Mark IV flying motorcycle from 1982 that I found in a shed in Nevada and spent about a year restoring. And I actually end up riding this motorcycle. It's got functional machine guns and the rockets still launch on it. Both of which are way safer than actually trying to ride this thing, because it is terrifying.
Amazing. I'm excited to dive in a little bit deeper here in a bit. Let's hear a little bit from Courtney. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your project.
Hi, my name is Courtney Aguida, and I am the creator and producer, writer of The Acting Class, a mockumentary short. It was loosely based off of Waiting for Guffman, and it's very much a modern retelling of that. I wrote the first 14 pages of it on a whim, and it's just to give an idea of what it would be like to be just an everyday person who decides to take an acting class on a whim as a suggestion from their like online therapist, like something to get you out of the house, and then they walk into this circus of all of these different characters who are immensely flawed, but still trying and searching for truth in some capacity. So it's 28 minutes of awkwardness and comedy, and just we kind of propel this like straight female character into Alex, into this just weird world of actors, which is extremely funny. And I started out as an actress, so I know that world implicitly. But yeah, it's been a fun process, and in writing it and really thinking all of these characters up and their connections. I can announce now, I guess, that I have written the feature to it. So it was going to be a series, and now it's a full-fledged feature that I'm excited to expand on. So I'm just happy that you guys love the comedy and think it's quirky, because that's very much the intention. So
Awesome. Okay, well, definitely going to have follow-ups about that transition, so be ready for that. Awesome. Let's see if we can get Mike, if he's doing all right with the storm. Mike, you there?
Hey, I'm still here, guys. I'm sorry about the picture. I do think it's with the storms, but no, I'm Mike Hall. I am the writer, director of a short film called A Strange Trip. It's a father-son road trip story with a lot of hippie soul vibe, built around those weird, funny little moments that end up meaning everything. It was a character-driven proof of concept for a feature script that I wrote, and so far it's been really encouraging to see it pick up, awards for not just the story, but like some craft awards as well. And we're just excited to be mentioned here at tCFF, and excited to talk about where the project's going. Don't have anything as cool as what Bob has sitting behind me, but I think the 68 VW bus we had was pretty dangerous too. So it was and it's been a blessing. So I can't thank you guys enough for this invite and get to talk about it a little bit. The story itself came from truth that I got from my father-in-law, and my story of his, and then my life at the time I was writing the script so it all kind of wound up in the story. And then when we were we wanted to take the feature film further and try to do that, it was the suggestion to make a proof of concept short. And for about a year now, we have been thoroughly thrilled at the response we've got, and we're ready to push forward.
Awesome. Well, happy to have you here, Mike. Allie, so good to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your project.
My name is Allie Hart. I am a comedy producer, live comedy producer, documentary producer. And my project is Slick Burn, Roast of the Oil Industry. And I really appreciate being part of this festival, because it was a category-defying project that was very hard to submit to places, because basically it's a filmed in front of a live audience, a roast of the oil industry with all these stand-up comedians that are really great playing characters like a duck covered in oil, the devil, Poseidon, dinosaur. Eliza Skinner is the head writer. I don't want to name everyone because it'll take me, but they're really great stand-ups, and I was really excited that they were willing to do this. And it's been a dream of mine for 20 years, which seems crazy, but I got a grant to make it from the Carmack Collective, which was really exciting. So I just wanted to do, the ultimate roasty is the oil industry. Like, they've done a lot of damage. So I wanted to see what would happen if we had roast jokes that we could chop up the full show and put it on the the algorithm, and just see if those jokes would travel further than other environmentally focused content.
Really cool. It's so unique, and to hear that backstory of like the grant and everything. We're gonna dive into that. Really excited to hear more. But before we do, I do see a familiar face. Scott, good to have you back. Tell us all a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about the project as well. And just in time, I timed it perfectly for the lights to go out on you.
Yeah, that was pretty great timing. My film is, I'll have the lights back on, but my film is called Pan and Stove. It's my shortest short film to date. It's 3 minutes long, although it is a serial and there are more, but it's also a standalone short, and it's about a pan that falls in love with the stove and gets burned. And I think anyone who's experienced heartbreak, romantic or otherwise in life, knows that feeling. But it's a 3D animated comedy film, and it's essentially a horror film masquerading as a Pixar film. And I was spoiled with Jocelyn Siddall, the best actress in the world. If any casting directors are watching, Jocelyn's exceptional, and I'm just blown away by the performances I got, and just happy to be here at one of the coolest festivals in the world.
Well, happy to have you back, Scott. Interested to hear a little bit more. Always really cool, really unique projects that Scott brings us. Lastly, we've got Jeff. Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself and your project.
Hi, I'm Jeff Poindexter. I'm the director, editor, co-lead, and co-writer of Burnouts, and this was a very long road to get this thing off the ground. It was initially conceived by my friend Ben Snedeker, who acts in the movie with me. He's been my real life friend for over 25 years now, and he, we were both in kind of weird positions in life in our early 20s, just trying to figure out like what to do. We kind of felt directionless, and I was looking to, after working in the independent film scene in Sacramento for quite a few years, I sort of wanted to make a pivot and start making my original short films. And so Ben and I just kind of met up. He had this concept, and he's never written anything before, and so we wanted to, so he learned how to properly write screenplays, and we just went over draft, and eventually our one of my best friends and an incredibly gifted filmmaker and cinematographer, Dylan Peshek, agreed to help us make this thing. And Ben and I would basically play exaggerated versions of ourselves who are just total jackasses in life, and we're basically trying to he's basically gets fired from every job possible. I'm a socially awkward dweeb who can't put himself out there after getting over a breakup, and so we decide to help each other steer each other into the right direction. But everything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong. And it was ultimately meant to be like a love letter to comedies of the early 2000s.
It's interesting because that actually feels like it's relevant to maybe some of what Bob went through. I don't know if you knew that you were, making this kind of buddy movie, but kind of evolved into that.
I knew the story was Barry and I from the beginning, and essentially, we shot the lion's share of it right up until the pandemic, and we had shot the end sequence of which is this massive adventure sequence out in the desert that cost a bunch of money and took years off my life. And so what I did, I think this is answering your question. I spent about 7 months cutting the last 11 minutes of the movie because it was imperative to me, to stick the landing and at least know where I was going, right? Like if you don't know if the Death Star is going to work, that Star Wars movie kind of falls apart, right? So I needed to know where I was going. and once we had that, then the themes of that adventure, right, like they just echoed through, like all the footage of the development of the culmination of that relationship was there. It was just prioritizing, you know, which part to focus on. And yeah, so does that kind of answer your question? Like I could go on about it.
Absolutely. That's great.
Okay.
That's awesome. Yeah. Really, really cool. And I mean, I think that's the fascinating thing is like with a documentary, you never know, you know, what kind of paths it's going to take. And then, you know, it's interesting to hear that like kind of process, because it's also like we always hear it about documentary, like you kind of find the story in the edit room.
Yeah, I was really sheepish and shy. Like I'm an artist, and being a director was great. Like my preference is to kind of hide behind what I make and not be out in front. And of course, since it was a one-man show and I was in all these shots and screwing off and stuff like that, you know, I did hire an editor, you know, and he just confirmed, which I was too scared to admit myself, which is like, Bob, man, this thing's kind of about you. You're going to have to talk about your dad. And I was like, really? Are you sure? And of course he was right. And then it was just a matter of, you know, just being really honest about that and like doubling down on kind of exposing those things, which I think is why it's resonating with folks, you know, because like it is honest as far as you know my approach goes, and ultimately that's what I wanted to do as a director and as a filmmaker. I you know, leave it all out there on film, as they say, and it's great, right? As scary as it is to anybody, you know, I'm sure everybody has a version of being nervous, you know, sticking their self out there, and it's just great, and it makes moving through life just a lot easier on a lot of levels, like not having that insecurity and just being able to be yourself, and bad things won't happen if you're just yourself out there.
Very well said. Very well said. So also joining us, we've got Shauna. Shauna, tell us a little bit about yourself and your project.
Hey, I'm Shauna Christmas. I'm a comedian from Las Vegas, but I have lived in all the places. I released my comedy special, Highly Intelligent, last year. I worked with Michael Malone, who used to be a stand-up comedian, but now he's a director. And it was fun and challenging. I'm not sure if I want to do it ever again, but good times.
Okay, well now I feel like that's like, why don't you ever want to do it again? What happened there that made you feel that way?
Well, no, I think my process with my stand-up, especially with this special, we talk about some really hard topics, especially at the end. And it was a subject I know I wanted to talk about, and I was trying to find ways to make it funny and a little bit more palatable so the audience wouldn't like hate my guts like Nanette. But working with Michael really helped me structure it in a way that I could tell the story and still find humor in it. But it was a lot of work. And I didn't really practice it because we kind of fixed it 2 weeks before we taped. And so I never got a chance to actually run through it. So what you're seeing is like my first time doing that nice big chunk at the end. And so I do enjoy the fact that it is authentic and real and that stuff. And there is some humor in there, thank goodness. But I don't know. I think when you swing that hard your first time, I'm not sure if you can go back to doing just like dick jokes. You know what I mean?
There's a balance. There's always a balance. Excuse this question if you want, but it's always an interesting process whenever a comedian puts up a special because, you know, there are some that have that, you know, I'm going to put one out every couple of years, and there are some that like take a really long time. For you, how long did it take to build out this special and this story?
I mean, I've been doing comedy at the time for 11 years. So I had to go back and be like, oh, I forgot I made that joke and that was funny. And then I have to remember the joke because I had been doing like a whole new different set over the course of my career, you know? But so I feel like it's been building since I started comedy. I think revisiting older material with new eyes and new perspective, it did make it better to do those jokes. And so, and also for me, it was like, I kind of wanted to get rid of some of those jokes because I had been telling them for so long. So it was a bit of a process of trying to get used to telling the old ones and then bringing in the newer ones that I was more excited about, and just trying to shed that person, because you would hope that you grow as a person and an artist. And so the process kind of started when I started, and then once I got with the director, it was so funny. We were at a hotel, and he, like, middle of the day, he's got his index cards out, which was my favorite part. I'm like, I want to get index cards. And then I regretted it because he was like, okay, tell me your jokes. And I was like, right now? But it's daytime. This is weird. But yeah, that process was a little bit strange. And so it was a fun learning experience, but I'm not sure if I don't think I've lived enough life for me to be like, I'm going to do another one. I think for me, stand-up is not just about going up there and saying stuff. I think for me, it's about lived experiences. And so I can't really have an opinion on a lot of stuff if I've never been around it, for me at least, or experienced enough of those kinds of things in my life. You can't be talking about traveling if you never actually go anywhere. You know what I mean? So for me, I think it's going to take me a little bit longer to kind of live some more life, have some more traumas, and then I'll be able to come back.
I can't help but think about Mike's film, because I feel like we're, very different, obviously, kind of going about things in a different way, but there's a lot of we've got to reckon with, in terms of family dynamics on a strange trip. Mike, you kind of mentioned a little bit about that. And I think you even mentioned that this became a proof of concept. Is this something that, as you go further into potentially developing like a feature, that you're going to dive more into some of those themes, or how are you navigating that?
The feature itself was the script itself was already written, and our producer read it, and he plays golf with a lot of people, and he knew some people who knew some people, and one of them happens to be a producer, and he's becoming a little bit more well known. He's working with Taylor Sheridan, and he read it. Actually, he read the proof of I'm lost for word now. I sent him some information about it. He wrote me back, thought it was a great idea, but he thought I should do a short version and use it as a proof of concept. So we took just a couple of the scenes from the feature script and melded them together to form what we put out. Hearing some of the other stories, I feel like I'm a very fortunate filmmaker in that our producer fully funded it immediately, and we had full crew, and just we went the whole 9 yards to make sure that we were doing the best that we could on the budget that we had, which is the most significant budget I've ever worked with at this point. And we're, like I said, it did delve with this kind of the same thing, the relationships of fathers and sons, which everyone has a father. And everybody gets those things where something with dad irritates you, and for a fact that there's something about you that irritates dad. And this is a whole road trip going back to what Jeff's kind of was talking about. It goes back to that old school buddy picture, but I went further back to more like the road pictures of the Bob Hope, Bing Crosby, those guys on the road, and just the little things, the little incidents along the road, the trip, that supply the comedy, but it's also, in the end, it shows the meaning of letting go of certain things because they really don't matter as much as you in the moment may think they do, because loss is permanent. And when that realization comes over Michael in the feature, that's where all the act one and act two kind of becomes more poignant in the story. But we were limited in what we could tell with the short, and we're just really excited that we're getting an honorable mention from a really cool film festival like you guys, and just proud to be a part of it.
Very cool to kind of hear that, how that has expanded and grown. And I mean, kind of in a similar world, we've got Courtney. You mentioned that you're also kind of going through a similar transition to expanding to a feature. Anything from what Mike was saying that was kind of resonating of like, you know, what that process has been like for you?
I think there are a lot of similarities. I think really, I mean, it's also going to be nuanced to just kind of the story you're telling as well. But I would say, I mean, I think for us, it's more, I mean, funding is a big thing. I think the story for me right now, I think is just aligning all the characters and expanding on them is the easy part, I think, when you know them so well and you've been living with them. But for me, I think and I'm sure Mike can probably attest to this, though, like working within budgets and then also taking that into account, but wanting to do a little bit more than like your proof of concept, which the acting class has sort of become, and sort of how I've been marketing it is now it's its own proof of concept for this feature. But I think I'm looking forward to telling a bigger story. And I think that story is not just about some like frivolous actors who are just crazy and figuring it out. I think it's become sort of a story about legacy and upholding legacy of a generation that came before you, and the legacy of the area that you're in. It's really developed into something so much bigger. And I think with actors too, developing a legacy that can live after you, and as an artist too, like figuring out who you are and your identity. So I think at least for me, I can see the development from it being kind of just this nuclear snapshot in time to it being so much bigger. And that's been a real treat in my process. And just developing the different personalities. But I would say the hardest thing is going to be funding. But I think that's really the battle with anybody trying to produce something, whether independently or just, you know, just fresh and new and something kind of from the ground up. And so that's the path that I am on currently, but I do have a fully fleshed out script, and I had a read through with some of the original actors from the short just this past Saturday, and it's like, how do I say this? Like, it's like the hand fit the glove. Like all of them came back into some of those roles, and I invited some newer actors and just invited some friends to view it too, and they just rose to the occasion. And of course I write for the actors that I have in mind for it too, so that helps. But yeah, it's exciting, and to expand on the universe, I think. And as the creator of this universe of the acting class, it's just a matter about getting the ball rolling and telling that story and adding to the legacy of what we created with the short. So that sort of answers your question, but kind of just gives a broad.
That's great. Allie, I'm curious, you know, we're talking about legacy. Obviously, I feel like mostly bad. Oil industry has some pretty bad legacy around it. You mentioned that this has been something that you've kind of had in your mind for a while. You know, you mentioned that there was grants behind it and everything. So like building this specific show, and then the idea of like everyone that you got involved and, you know, filming it as well, that process, like what was in your initial mind versus the actual finished product? Like, how did that evolve over time?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I first thought about it, I was just picturing comedians roasting like they roast anyone as themselves. And it's kind of just always been in the back of my mind. I ended up going to grad school for sustainability, and like it was like I was always thinking about it. And finally, I don't know why in the last couple of years, I was like, if I don't do this now, like someone else is going to do it. I'm going to be so mad because I've been thinking about it for so long. And I'm sure someone's done it on some level, but yeah. And so I just suddenly had this idea about the characters, and like roasting as characters would help the comics just sort of have a point of view, which is like the whole what stand-up comedy is sort of based on, so that they're roasting from a perspective of a certain character instead of everyone just trying to come out with like this like general roast joke approach, like, you know. So that kind of changed for me in the last, like, I don't know, I got the grant in 2024. And so I think right before that, I had that idea to kind of make it a little easier for comics to find their way into the jokes. And I let them, I kind of had like a list of like, here's some potential characters. And then some people come up with their own. For example, Chad Damiani, who is like the clown boss of Los Angeles and now famous for teaching Connor Story clown. He was a pair of testicles filled with microplastics and also a bro podcaster from the manosphere. And so he had like a layered approach to really, you know, get people to think about the fact that microplastics are everywhere, and doing it in a funny, like manosphere, very current kind of genre. But yeah, it's sort of, I really didn't want to like be prescriptive. I wanted comics to feel like they could make it their own thing, and they seem to have fun with it. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. It's so interesting. And you've produced live comedy, you said. So this was not like a completely out of the blue thing. You knew some of these people, and you know, they were all like, okay, we trust Allie. We know what's going on.
Yeah. Shauna's actually done some of my shows in LA when she's been in town. So, yeah, I think that made it easier because I think it was sort of like, what are we doing? Because it's like a roast. It's also like roast parody because everyone's making fun of what happens in a roast, and they're doing a roast. So there's like a lot of levels to it. And I think there had to be sort of a level of trust that like, I wanted it to be comedy forward, even though like the environmental angle is really important to me. I just have seen so much environmental comedy that's like preachy and is really trying to get like information out instead of trying to be funny. And so I was like, I'm just going to get really funny people to like write these jokes about it, because like, to me, that's the best way to get that, you know, get people to like watch it. So yeah, there was definitely some trust, and I hope that they still feel okay about the show.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool to hear that evolution and how you put everything together. Jeff, I'm curious, there's so much that you mentioned about burnouts that I wanted to come back to. You mentioned that, you know, it was shot over the course of 6 months, which is, for anyone ever who's made a film like that, that sounds like, oh, that's an easy thing to do, but it actually makes it like so much more complicated. And you mentioned this is like the first time really jumping into comedy. I want to hear a little bit about like, you know, building that structure of how you shot over the course of that amount of time, keeping the tone, keeping everyone in character. How was that process for you?
I think being on several prior shoots was very beneficial, because we made so many mistakes in the past that we sort of knew what to at least have an idea of you know, certain logistical things to be prepared for or to avoid. But you know, most of the time, you know, it still went wrong. But it wasn't like you know, it was like, you know, 6 consecutive months of shooting. It was you know, sometimes we would go you know, up to 3 weeks without filming anything. You know, so it was just me, Ben, and Dylan in a group text, just kind of coordinating like, hey, you know, when are you free? Oh, I have work. Oh, well, but I'm off at this time. Oh, well, we were going to shoot this scene at this location at this time, but since you're free at this time instead, why don't we shoot this scene instead? And So it was just communication was the only thing that was like one of the main things that saw this thing to the very end. Because if any one of us jumped ship at any point, where we were just like, it was a funny idea, but I got other things going on. I'm good. Sorry. Then the whole thing would have completely collapsed in on itself. It was it had the most fragile foundation, but because we enjoyed working with each other so much, and we were always making each other laugh, and we were constantly coming up with ideas on the spot, and certain scenes we would shoot, in the back of my head, I'm thinking like, I'm not feeling too confident about this. But then or I guess I also, as the director, wanted it to be as much of a collaborative effort as possible. And, I wanted to hear everyone's ideas. And if something I suggested, maybe didn't sound too good to everyone else, then, I would, like, oh, well, how do you think we can make it better? And sometimes their suggestion actually made the scene better. And I think that's what happens because you're in an environment with so many like-minded creative people. And, I totally respect, the director's vision, but I do think that collaboration is so vital, especially in the independent film scene, because, it's not like we were getting paid to do this. This was purely because we wanted to do this and we thought we had a cool, funny idea. And I think it kind of inadvertently became sort of an example of, hey, we made this thing for less than $1,000 between the three of us. We were all insanely broke. We made mistakes along the way. We learned so much. We tried new things. We stepped out of our comfort zone, and it's just sort of an example, I think, of anyone can really make a movie with a little bit of determination, a little bit of passion, and some like-minded creative people. I don't think obviously budget is is like a big intimidation factor for a lot of people, but with obviously depending on what kind of story you're telling, excuse me, but I think with all the technology at such a more reasonable consumer price at this point, you can probably film an entire movie on your phone. I mean, people have done that, and I don't think there's any excuse to at least not try.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's kind of been a sentiment that I've heard more and more over the years, and couldn't agree more with that. At the same time, in a very different kind of way, Scott is over there doing animation, so he's making it as complicated as possible. All jokes, but Scott, you have a unique way through your animation and how you explore, as you mentioned earlier, very human qualities, but you tend to do this. I guess I'm thinking of the first one that you submitted to the Comedy Film Festival, Banana Tree, and this one, Pan and Stove, where you're exploring very human qualities through inanimate objects. Talk to us a little bit about like those similarities, as well as like how these films are unique on their own.
Yeah, I mean, I think animation, like that's a very American tradition in animation to anthropomorphize things, and I'm just following up with that tradition and like animation has been there for me since I was a kid, and I still love it. And like, to contrast the two stories, Banana Tree is this gentle, loving story about a farmer who thinks his plants might be sentient but isn't positive, and it sort of has a happy ending. Where Pan and Stove is a horrific film where like, I just imagine a Pan falling in love with the stove and realizing the stove can hurt her. And it's just bleak. And like, again, I have like friends in Canada. I don't know why I picked Canadian friends to do these parts, but they were just incredible in the roles. And like, I don't know, maybe Canadian actors are just better in general, or at least the ones I've worked with. But yeah, I just feel like I'm spoiled with great actors. And, you know, there's not a lot you can do with 3 minutes, but I feel like there's something there. And in one of the previous screenings, I heard gasps at all the right parts, and I think it might be okay.
That's awesome. Really cool. I really appreciate everyone's time here, and I know we're getting close to the end. So I do want to take a step back. I promised I would do this and open the floor to see if anyone has any questions for each other. I think we've all heard a little bit about each other's projects, you know, what the process has been, and it's just so fascinating. Such different projects all the way around. Any questions that anyone has for anyone? Courtney, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my question would be for Allie. Where did you find the grant? Because as I mentioned budget before, where did you go for any sort of grant information? I would love to know that as I'm moving forward with my project.
This is very specific. There's the Carmack Collective is like focused on the fossil fuel industry and comedy. It was kind of like the perfect funder. Feel very fortunate. But yeah, I've had to fundraise for documentaries and other things, and it's such a brutal process. And I feel like, not that, I mean, that I got like lucky, and I feel like knowing that funder existed helped me like bring this project back. Cause you know, I was kind of like, it's a thing I don't know if I can do it without like any money. But I feel like finding people that care about, you know, people that have some money that care about your story. I know a friend who got a small amount of money to make a short from someone who just like cared about the subject matter. You know, it seems like a lot of the normal ways are drying up. not to be a downer, but you have to like find your champion. So I'm really grateful for the Carmack Collective.
Thank you for that. I didn't know if you found it on like a specific platform that also featured other.
No, but I did go to the Hollywood Climate Summit, which is an annual event in LA that has like all different kinds of climate content, and the funder was there, and that's how I got to meet her in person too. So it's like just going out in the world.
Yeah, like finding the niche of the subject or the theme, and then kind of directing in that and focusing in that direction. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I can, you know, like yeah, I've been self-funded, which I don't know if that was a greater idea or not. And then I also did an Indiegogo campaign, which of course comes with its own strings and stuff. And I don't know, this probably isn't super helpful. You know, the interesting thing, like my editor, my colorist, my sound guy, and and my composer, both, like, we had enough of a proof of concept that when we were shopping around for folks, and this isn't for funding, this was for finishing, right? Like, all these people saw something in the movie that made them adjust their rate to what I could afford, right? So there's, you know, and you kind of, and I'm sure you probably already know this, right? Like, it just doesn't hurt to ask, right? And, and you know, sometimes it's like, oh my God, if somebody would just write me a check for 150K, and it's like, well, if you have 6 people who believe in your film who are willing to donate 5K, right? Like the result is kind of the same, because it's so daunting. Like I'm trying to get into, you know, distribution and stuff, right? And it's like I can barely afford to, you know, manufacture 300 DVDs, and you know, but this person, a friend of my son's, like loved, his mom like loved the movie, and was like, oh well, I can help you with the DVDs, right? Like, I mean, you know, it's not effective if you're going into production to hope for favors, but at the same time, like you can get a lot done on you know, if people believe in your project, and since you already have like a real proof that's resonating, like there are going to be believers in that, and you know, and take their $5, man. if they don't have 1,500, I would think that's been working for me so far, is all as I can say.
Any other questions?
Geez, I just have so many, Mike. Like, I don't know as far as if you're doing more film festivals and stuff like that, but you know, since it sounds like your film is addressing some kind of parent-dad issues, there's a really great festival called the Daddying Film Festival. Like, real poor choice of name in my opinion, but they've been around forever, and they definitely do focus on what sounds like your type of film, and they'll really go the distance if it touches them, and yeah, and put you in front of some more people.
Thank you very much, Bob. I really appreciate that.
You can email me after this. I can hook you up with those guys.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the story is really, it does resonate with the relationships of father and sons, and when it came out, I was imagining, because of the story my father-in-law told me about, he was going to go to Woodstock and spent all summer saving money to go, and then decided not to, because he didn't want his little Catholic mother to worry. So he spent the money on a fringed leather jacket like from Easy Rider, and a slouch hat like Dennis Hopper's. And but it was the kernel of the story that, you know, we have always heard about the 500,000 kids that made it, but we don't hear the stories about those that were trying to make it and didn't get to. And it just kind of evolved into this father-son thing. You know, and you think of a Tommy Chong type father that's an old hippie pot smoker, and then his mother forcing his son to take his dad on this trip to go see the museum that now exists there, and just all the little things that they butt heads about and have had problems with over their lives kind of manifest in this road trip. And in the end, when you know, there's a lot of things that come together for the father and the son, and I was going through that with my own father at the time. Thank goodness, you know, like in the story, I got to say my goodbyes, but it was that kernel, that essence of the father-son relationship. And I just told someone today, if only, I mean, it's great to get awards, and it's great to hear all the accolades that you can accomplish with something like this. But to me, if one person picks up the phone and calls their dad just to say, "Hey, Dad, how you doing?" That's more to me than any award can accomplish. That's kind of where I'm at with all of it. So, but thank you, Bob. I will reach out, and I'll definitely submit.
What I'm going to do, just rapid fire, is kind of what you're working on next. Mike, let's start with you. You mentioned, you know, the feature. Is that the next step, or is there anything else for you?
Yeah, the feature is the next step for us with this project. we're going to be up in Miami, Oklahoma at that festival in June. We're in Chicago, and at the weekend before that, it's doing very well in that department. So we're trying to keep that momentum going so we can, like everybody here talking about, find those investors, find someone that believes in what we're showing and what we're doing, and get the financing to shoot the feature. The script is ready to go, and that's where we're at with it. And I wanted to mention something before I got off of here, because in the short film, the music plays a lot into the story, and Dr. Wu is the name of the band that provided our music for the short. And I want to give those guys props, because it is kind of the soul of it. There's a lot. This is very music driven as well as emotion driven, and I think that when you're doing comedy, you have to have characters that people believe in. So those things all together has kind of pushed this together. And Dr. Wu is the name of the band. That's Dr. W-U. And you can go to texasblues.org if you're interested. texasblues.org, and their soundtrack for our film is on there. You can go hear all the music.
Very cool. Very cool. It's awesome whenever you've got local artists who can work together like that. Scott, tell us a little bit about what's next for you.
I am working on looking to finance and produce a feature film called Gratuitous Incongruous, which deals with a lot of topical issues, from looks maxing to OG influencers trying to find their way in the modern world where so much has changed, but also not so much has changed. And yeah, I have a lot of projects in various stages of production and development. An animated series called What Are You Waiting For might be out soon, and that's about a man who gets kidnapped and they put his brain in a cat body. I'm calling it my version of almost a Frankenstein type story. And a Banana Tree video game is also in the works, so there might be something with that soon.
Very cool. Very cool. Bob, are your Megaforce journeys going to continue with Barry, or are you on to something new?
Well, currently we're ramping up for a theatrical experiment over the summer. Barry Boswick goes to a lot of Comic Cons, and although I think my movie can reach anybody, Ground Zero is definitely fans of being a fan of something, so that's a pretty smart place to start. Since this is my first and only movie and I put all my money into it, I'm gonna ride the wave as long as is fiscally or emotionally responsible on it. So yeah, I've got at least another year of flying this flag. At the end of my movie, in classic 80s fashion, I do say, Ace Hunter will return in Megaforce 2. And as a Hail Mary for somebody to let me actually direct the sequel to the original 80s movie. And surprisingly, I'm in some chats with people who may let me do that, which would be insane, right? And Barry wants to be in it too, so it'd be 80-year-old Ace Hunter, which I think I could do justice. But it's just all hands on deck to do the whole process from start to finish, right? It's so easy to be like, oh, I did good at film festival, I guess I'm done, but I just don't feel like I'm done. So if anybody has any suggestions, let me know later. Thank you all for being here, right?
It sounds like you've got a good path already laid out, so it's exciting to hear that's what's already in the works. So fingers crossed. I hope it happens.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, much appreciated.
Courtney, I know you mentioned we've talked quite a bit about like the development to the feature, which is really exciting. I also know that sometimes it's like you got to kind of have multiple things going on, so you know you don't have too much. How are you doing? Are you putting kind of focus on the feature or another project?
I feel like as creatives, we always have to have like multiple, plates in the air. So that's me now. But my main focus right now in the creative, because also I'm a performer by nature too, so I'm curating my own, life there. But I also I'm really hyper focusing on getting the acting class feature, the mockumentary feature, on its feet. I've enrolled it in or submitted it into a couple screenplay competitions for the feature. So it's more or less like we did really well with the short. We've won a couple of awards too. So I think there's a want for it to be something more and to explore these characters. So that's my main focus. And then I'm also doing some writing. I'm writing a kind of a weird girl romantic comedy about a woman who's idealizes an older time when dating and romance was very much, idealistic, but and sort of projects that on a doll. And it's just like this comedy. It's random and weird. And so I'm currently working on that now. And then also just writing some shorts. And then I'm thinking of also curating a vertical series because I know that's becoming really popular. So just keeping busy and trying to let the creative juices flow.
I love all those ideas. I love the weird rom-com thing. I absolutely go for it. That's so cool. Allie, okay, so we took down the oil industry. Who are you going after next?
Still the oil industry. I do have another idea in that vein that's like a kind of a parody of another format that I'm thinking about doing. I've also have short doc ideas that I've been batting around, and then I've also started working on a vertical like interview series with comedians around the environment with another comedian who's like a environmental comic, and Brad Einstein. So a couple different things that I'm playing with, and we'll see. But yeah, like Courtney said, there's like always a million things that are potentially going to go next.
Jeff, what's next for you? What's the next step?
So currently, I'm kind of juggling a few different things around, but next thing is going to be a music video for a local artist out here in Austin. Then I kind of want to get back into doing some shorts, but I'm also writing primarily a one location horror thriller. And Ben is actually hard at work on a continuation of Burnouts. So we'll hopefully we get there.
Awesome. Good stuff to look forward to. Finally, Shauna, I know you made your proclamation that you're not doing another special for a while. Can we see you on stage somewhere? Any other projects that we have to look forward to?
I live in Las Vegas where stand-up is terrible. I currently taking a break from producing my monthly show. However, the streets are asking for a reboot. So I'm currently about to start doing my monthly show, which is very fun because I have a live band and it's cool. And that's pretty much what I'm doing locally. I'm thinking about my special was supposed to be in half an hour, but it ended up being almost an hour. And so I'm thinking about kind of clipping it into like a best of kind of thing and like relaunching it sometime soon so people can watch it again in less time because we all have ADHD according to TikTok. But other than that, just out here trying to get laid and get some rest.
What a note to end on. Amazing. Thank you to everybody, all the filmmakers that took the time, went longer, way longer. So sorry about that, but it was worth it to hear all these stories, to have these exchanges. Again, all of these films are part of the honorable mentions of the Comedy Film Fest 2026. We're so happy to have them as part of the official Comedy Film Fest family. Please check them out however you can. Support these filmmakers. We'll see you next time.